Hello everybody, this is Ryan and this is lesson 18 of working with JavaScript. In this lesson we'll be learning about the string object. So we have our standard div tag where we can do some output. We have our link to our external JavaScript file. We have our standard anonymous function. So the variable block represents the entire div tag. You may recall from our lesson on working with objects, to create a child object, a child string object, we could say new string Remember, objects in JavaScript begin with a capital letter. A much easier way of creating a child object of the string object is just to create a normal string variable. Those two are exactly the same. So obviously we would prefer to use the second method as it's much shorter. So once you have your string object, you can make use of any of the built-in properties and methods. One of the properties we learnt about was the length property. That shows us that we have 26 characters in our sentence. Then we looked at a method of the string object, which was toUpperCase. You can tell it's a method because of the round brackets afterwards. And that converted the string to uppercase. So we're going to look at some other things you can do with a string. If you want to just retrieve an individual letter of your string, you can actually treat the string like an array. So that would actually land up giving me the first character of the sentence. So it's zero based, just like the array is zero based. The first character in the sentence is always character 0, then character 1, character 2, and so on. So if I choose character 2, then I would just get the L of love. If I choose character 3, I would just get the O of love. Now let's look at some of the methods of the string object. We could say sentence.substring and just retrieve a sub portion of our string. So if we wanted the word love, we could say 2, comma. So you always put the starting position first. Remember that's 0, 1, 2. And then you need the ending position plus 1. So if that's 2, 3, 4, 5, we would actually need to put 6. Always one more than what you want. So this would allow us to retrieve more than one character from our sentence, a sub portion of our sentence. Now we could do a similar function, substr. The way substr works is you also give it a starting position, 0, 1, 2. But now, instead of the ending position plus 1, you give it the length. In other words, how many characters you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you should land up with the same answer. So I'm sure you'll agree that it's actually much easier to use the second method, substr. So let's do a practical example of the substring. Let's say I had an identity number. Here's an example of somebody's identity number. I just made it up. So in South Africa we have the first two characters of the identity number as the date, the year that they were born. We have the second 2 characters as the month they were born. The next 2 characters the day they were born. And then an interesting one is the gender of the person. If that number is between 0 and 4, they are female. And if that number is between 5 and 9, then they are male. So what I would like us to do is to print the following to our block. Something like, you are a male born on the 26th of the 11th, 77. So that's our goal. That's what we want to output at the end of the day. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into little steps. We'll create separate variables for each component. So we'll have a year. So we'd say ID number dot, I'm going to use the sub str starting at position 0, and the length, in other words, I want 2 characters from that position. You can always test your progress by printing that to the block. Make sure you're on the right track. 77, so that's correct. Then I'll make a separate variable for the month, and a separate variable for the day, remember you can always test that you're on the right track by just outputting each component. So far so good. Now we need the gender. And then I'm going to use the ternary operator. You may remember it. You first do a test. So you would say G is less than 5. Question mark. Remember, if the comparison is true, it will carry out the statement after the question mark. So we would say female. And if it's false, it will carry out the statement after the colon. So now if I print out the value of gender, I get male, which is correct. Whereas if this number was, let's say, a 2, I would land up with female. So now I can say you are a gender born on day, month, and yeah. You are a female born on 26th of the 11th, 77. So there's a practical example of using the substring or the substr function. Another function or method that we have in the string object is the search method. The search method can be used to search for a word in a sentence. So let's have our sentence again. And we want to search for the word love. So we could say block.innerHTML equals sentence.search, looking for the word love. This will come back with a position where it found that word love. So it found it at position 2. Remember that the I is position 0, then 1, then 2. So let's search for something else. If I search for the I, capital I, it is case sensitive, it comes back with a 0. Found it at position 0. What if we search for something that does not occur in the sentence? Then it returns a -1. So this is quite useful because we can use it in an if statement. So let's say I want to search for the word love, and if it occurs, I want to say I found it. If I can't find it, I want to say I couldn't find it. So I'd say if sentence.search love. So if I found it, I would say not equal to -1. I'm doing the opposite because there's no guarantee it will always appear at the same place every time. So you then have to look for the opposite of if it found it. In other words, if it couldn't find it. So I'm saying if it could find it. If it not couldn't find it, in other words, if it could found it, then print to our block, I found it. Else, I couldn't find it. So in this case it found it. So if we change this to the word hate, now it couldn't find it. A similar method to the search method is the replace method. So the replace method would allow you to search for one word or one letter and replace it with another word or another letter. So if I search for hate, I can replace it with love. So this ends our lesson on working with a string object.